Hey, hey, friends! Back at you with another live episode broadcast. If you are new here, I am Brenda Bennett. Sugarfreemom.com is my website. And I am super excited to get into tonight's show because we have a special guest. And we were supposed to have this special guest last week, but unfortunately, with flash flooding where she was in Southern Virginia, and no power, we had to cancel. So I was happy to hear from her that it only lasted a day of not having her power, but she is back with us tonight, and I'm excited to get into this interview with Jessyca Renyolds. But before we do that, I want to share with you a couple of things you may not know. Well, first off, if there are any of you that are new, you may not know who I am. And like I said, my website is sugarfreemom.com. And I've been blogging since 2011. I am a mom of three. My oldest is in college, and I have to bring him back on Sunday. Yeah, I'm sad. And I have two younger children, 16 and 13. And I have been creating recipes for a long time, actually. I've been sugar-free since 2004, but I wasn't low carb at that time. I was more paleo. And then in 2011, I started the blog because all my friends were asking for recipes that were sugar-free. And my brother said, start a blog. So that's what happened to me. And that's how it began. And I love creating recipes. I try to create recipes that are for the whole family. So whether you are just doing low carb on your own, that no one's going to care at dinner when you serve everyone the same meal, so you don't have to make something separate for anyone. They're all just going to love the food. Hey, Sharon, excited you're here. Please share where you're from. I'd love to know where you guys are watching from. It really encourages me to see the smiles and the likes and the hearts. And so anyway, I started, like I said, I've been making and creating recipes for my website, and I have a cookbook coming out called Naturally Keto, and it releases October 29th of this year. And it is up for pre-sale now. So I really hope that you will pre-order my book if you love my recipes. Have you made any of my recipes? Please share if you have. Hey, Nicole from Australia. Cool. My daughter wants to go there. If only for the big spiders, I'm a little afraid. Another one from Australia, Ryan. Wow, that's great. And hello, Cynthia from Washington State. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. So like I said, I have a cookbook that is just available for pre-order now. It's releasing October 29th. It's called Naturally Keto. And just to tell you a little bit about it, it's over 125 low-carb keto recipes that the whole family will enjoy. These are recipes that you can feed the non-keto crowd. I've done it for years because none of my family are low-carb and keto, except now my husband, thankfully, and my kids eat whatever I make. So 125 recipes, over 115 that are nut-free because my youngest has a tree nut and peanut allergy. I've got 50 dairy-free recipes. I've also got like 75 egg-free recipes. So I've tried to really make it allergy-friendly. So I hope that you will pre-order the book. Oh, I forgot to tell you, huge giveaway going on, which is only happening until Monday. Over $200 worth of products that I picked for you to start out. It's like a starter pack for my cookbook. I've got like sesame flour, coconut flour, ground flaxseed. I've got protein powder in there, gelatin. Oh, all the sweeteners like Swerve and Lakanto and Sweet Leaf. So you've got to enter on the blog. So sugarfreemom.com, check that out. And now I will tell you, one more thing. I also have a meal planning website. Yeah, membership. So you can like totally get customized meal plans. That's there too. It's all on my blog. All right. So now let me tell you a little bit about our guest. And if you have questions, we want to hear them because hopefully at the end of this interview, we'll be able to answer some. Thanks, Lisa. Made the fudge recipe the other day. Kids loved it. Awesome. Hi, Sabrina from Georgia. Yes, please leave questions because Jessyca Well, let me tell you a little bit about Jessyca, and then you can leave all your questions. Um, Jessyca is so when I met at KetoCon in August, it was a KetoCon conference in August. No, sorry, it was the end of June. It was in Austin, and she spoke, and I was blown away when she spoke and told, a lot of. She shared a lot of things about herself, and it really resonated with me because I've dealt with some of the issues that she has dealt with, and she's helping others now, and it's amazing. Let me just read her bio so you guys can get to know Jessyca. Jessyca is a ketogenic lifestyle coach who's certified in holistic nutrition and cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders. She struggled with bulimia, anorexia, and compulsive eating for 31 years before discovering keto. She has now been in recovery for over 3.5 years and spends most of her time pursuing her passion to spread the word that there is hope and healing and recovery from eating disorders by just eating real food. She has lost an amazing 135 pounds, and she's gotten off all her medications for depression, anxiety, bladder disease, and migraines just because she went to a ketogenic diet. That is an amazing, amazing thing. That's a whole person, pretty much. And she's been a speaker on Jimmy Moore's 12th annual low carb cruise. Has anybody been on that cruise? And she's written articles for Keto Evangelist and ketogenic.com. So please welcome Jessyca. I'm going to add her now to the screen. Add the guest. Here we go. Wait a minute. Figure this out. Share. Ah, it works.
How are you?
Hooray. I'm so excited it works. Yay.
Yeah,
I'm
it's great.
so great. So welcome. Thank you for joining me, Jessyca. I really appreciate it. We missed you last week, so praying all is well now.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on and for your patience. That was just really bad timing
Oh,
last
I
week.
know. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. In fact, we've got a hurricane. I live in Rhode Island, but the weather's good today. But my husband is part of emergency preparedness for the VA hospitals across the country, and they're watching this hurricane. He's going to be working all weekend because Florida, might be hit pretty bad. So praying for everyone in this path. So Jessyca, I am so excited to have you on the show because I felt so compelled, by hearing your story. I've listened to a few podcasts with you, and I know your story. But would you share with everyone a little bit about some of the struggles? Like, I know it's been all your life, and you've really dealt with this, but now you've turned what I always say about my own story is you've turned your mess into your message, and that's what's so beautiful and encouraging. And I really hope tonight that people are going to be encouraged if they're dealing with some of the same issues that I know I've dealt with and you have all your life. So go ahead, and it's all yours. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's start with that. For me, being able to share this story and talk about my struggles with eating disorders and also mental health issues,
Yes.
depression, and mood swings and all kinds of things like that. It is redemption for me. Um, for me, it is a miracle that I am able to have the very worst things in my life be used for something good. And I am beyond grateful for that and just so appreciative. I did struggle since childhood with compulsive eating, and at age 11, I became bulimic.
Wow, that was young. Oh my goodness.
Really, really young. And at the time, I had not heard of bulimia. I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was something I came up with, a great way to stay.
Wow, really? You hadn't seen or heard from others about doing it? Because that's how I learned.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of times that's the case, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
I lived a pretty sheltered life. We went to private Christian school, and there we weren't exposed to a lot of like
Yes.
even magazines or TV or anything like that. It was one of those things that I thought I created in order to keep myself thin.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened was it really became an addiction. I was addicted to the feeling of
Mhm.
stuffing down emotions
Yep.
and then purging.
Yeah.
It wasn't just then about my body or about weight. It really
Mhm.
became addictive behavior. So
Mhm.
um, that continued. I went to the hospital many, many times. I had more therapists than I could count,
Oh boy.
and I was sick until I was age 41.
Wow.
So,
Long
so
time.
really, yeah, really decades of that destructive behavior. And I had little brief periods of time where I get better when I got out of the hospital, and then I always relapsed.
Mhm.
I just couldn't seem to permanently um, get better. I didn't believe I could get better.
Right. Right. And then how did you learn about keto then? How did you, or did you, for me, for my example is I went sugar free back in 2004 because I couldn't lose the baby weight from the second child. And I had a friend who went into a Christian program called Prism, and it was no white flour and no sugar and no white potatoes and no white rice. So it was more of a paleo approach
Yes.
because you could still eat sweet potatoes and all this. But that was my first learning about getting rid of white refined sugar while I still ate honey at that time. And I made recipes for my kids. That was the first realization though that I had a sugar addiction and I didn't know
Right.
it. Because then I started making these recipes because my son has the nut allergy. So I'd make the honey recipes with granola bar, granola bars
Yeah.
for him. And then I would eat them. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's not white refined sugar, but I'm still craving sugar.
Yeah.
I'm still craving. So it was still sugar to me, but that was how I kind of gradually went from sugar free with the white refined to then low carb is realizing all sugar, even some fruits cause cravings in me.
Right. Yeah.
So how was yours? So had you ever um, heard about it before
Well,
21, or
not as it is today. Back in the 90s, I did Atkins. My husband and I did Atkins, which
okay. So
was low carb, but it wasn't particularly ingredients focused. It didn't eliminate all
right.
those things. It really was just a matter of coming in under 20 carbs. I could eat a whole side of beef.
It
I was
didn't
still
matter.
I was still
Yeah,
binging,
I
um,
get you.
but it
Mhm.
didn't eliminate things that I was addicted to. We'd eat tons and tons of like carb smart ice cream, and so I was still in that addictive behavior. I lost weight, but I would still binge and I would still purge. So it wasn't exactly the same for me. It did work for weight loss, but it wasn't ultimately the thing
Mhm.
that healed me.
Mm.
Um, when it when I at the point that I found keto, I speak about having anorexia and bulimia and compulsive overeating. In my low weight, I was 115 pounds, and I'm 5'10".
Wow, that's really too low. I'm 5'2", and I've never I've never weighed that. Yeah.
But when I found keto, I was 309. I
Okay.
had literally just, I mean, the swing in my weight
Yeah.
there was a point where I had just given up. I was so tired of dieting. I was so tired. And I really did think that I had tried everything.
Hmm.
Like I said, I had done Atkins before. I had done HCG and
Oh wow. Those
Nutrisystem
are the
and
shots, right? HC.
HCG shots.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah.
goodness.
And
Wow.
you also eat under 500 calories a
Did you
day
lose
on
weight?
that.
Did you lose
Yes, I
weight?
always lost weight.
Yeah.
Always.
But it was
I like to say
keeping.
every diet works until it stops working.
Right, right. Or you lose the weight and you just can't maintain it, or you're at a
Can't.
party and you say, "Well, I've lost all this weight. I can cheat a little," right?
Right. So it was either that or so either I was doing metabolic damage because I was eating so few calories that I absolutely could not maintain that. I mean, no one can eat 500 calories forever. You just
Right.
can't. Um, or there is that. I think we kind of, when we have an eating disorder or we have food or sugar addiction, one thing that I used to believe was if I lost the weight,
Hmm.
then I could eat like normal
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
And in reality, my eating disorder was there. It clearly was whether I was thin or whether I was overweight. And so one of the things that had to happen was I had to accept that when you have a sugar addiction, you're wired a little bit differently when
Mhm.
it comes to food. And so when I was, like I said, 309 pounds, and I was in terrible shape, I wasn't leaving the house. I hadn't driven a car in
Wow.
5 years. I mean, I was really just completely withdrawn from society, even.
Mhm.
And my husband, I had a health scare.
Mhm.
I wouldn't go to the doctor, but my husband insisted that I get my blood pressure checked,
Oh
and
boy.
it was way, way in the hypertension range, like immediate threat of stroke.
Wow.
And it scared me.
Yeah.
Um, and it woke me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And my husband said, let's do something. And because I
Mhm.
had done low carb in the past,
Mhm.
I said, okay, I'll go low carb. I didn't really, again, this was going on 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know the difference in low carb and
Mhm.
keto.
Mhm.
So my husband added me to some really amazing Facebook groups,
Oh,
and I
oh
started spending time in there, and I started off just low carb. And as I learned the differences that
yeah. Mhm.
focus on really eliminating anything in your body that is going to act as a sugar and turn on cravings,
Mm.
that was the real difference, the ingredients focus. And I had never really fully eliminated the things I was addicted to.
Right.
I didn't really I don't think I'd ever felt full and satisfied before keto,
Mm.
even on low carb.
Yeah.
It was the high fat, moderate protein, low carb. It was
Mhm.
that combination that made such a difference for me in terms
Mhm.
of my actual physical hunger.
Yeah.
So that's how I discovered it, actually through Facebook, through
Wow,
my
that's
husband's
great.
help.
Thank God for your
Yeah,
husbands.
thank
That's
God for him.
amazing. Well, I felt the same way. So I switched to the low carb, and then I was still struggling with food addiction, and and basically, I tell everybody, like, I could overeat broccoli. Like, I really, really could overeat, vegetables, because I loved them. So the problem for me, and then the reason why I switched when I was low carb, I still was low fat. Like, I wasn't embracing the fat at all, because all my life, and I'm older. I think I'm older than you. I'm 40. I'm 47.
I'm
So
45, so we're
yes,
awfully
I'm older
close.
than you, girl. But that was the whole thing when I grew up. It was low fat, and you should be scared of the fat,
Oh
and
yeah, fat
going.
would kill you, and fat would make you fat. Remember Susan Powder?
Yeah.
The
The,
fat will make the fat makes you
yeah.
fat. Yeah,
Such a lie. Such a
yeah,
lie. And that really, it worried me to go to keto. I didn't want to, because I thought, oh, you've got to eat high fat, high fat.
mm,
But that was the one switch. So when I went from low carb to keto, I noticed the cravings. Like, I could
mm,
forego the potato chips at a party.
right,
I wasn't, I saw the bowl and I don't need to eat them. Whereas when I was low carb, I crave, like, I had to, like, I couldn't control myself. Yes, I could stay away from the sugar and the
right,
ice cream and the cake and all that, but I couldn't control those darn chips. And
right.
it was, I think, the fat piece of it that was missing for me.
Yeah,
In
I think absolutely the fat itself squashes those physical cravings,
Yeah,
but then there's the psychological benefits that come along with a high
yeah,
fat diet. That was what was the unexpected thing, that
right,
I could actually think clearly
yeah,
and actually work out why I was doing what I was doing. There's a real emotional component too. There's the physical cravings, like you said, you could binge on broccoli. Me too. And
yeah.
I think the reason why is that I was literally using it to soothe every emotion. My
Hmm.
whole life, if I was excited, I ate to
Hmm.
celebrate. If I
Right,
was afraid,
yeah,
I ate to push down that feeling. If I was
right,
nervous, if I was sad, I
right,
always use food to soothe those things. So
right,
it my body would signal hunger even though there was no hunger. If I had that emotion, just
right,
because I had always fed the emotion, it
right,
felt like hunger to me. So
right,
it wasn't just the sugar, it wasn't just that sugar addiction. It was also an emotional addiction to soothing by eating.
right.
And
I remember the same. I remember actually the feelings of true hunger. So my daughter was a baby. And I remember, trying to not eat after 7 p.m. because I was a snack, TV watcher, and I would eat at night. And as soon as the kids went to bed, after, watching them all day, I'm like, I'm hungry. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Right.
I'm truly feeling hunger. And I remember having to fight that feeling because did I want some eggs? No, I didn't want eggs. I wanted something sweet, So, but the psychological piece that like, wow, I've been so hard all day with these babies, and it's 9 o'clock, and my body physically felt, which I thought was true hunger, and
Right.
it was just habit hunger, I call
Yeah.
it. I really think it was habit hunger. So if you can share with everyone, so you go keto. How long do you think it took you to kind of break those cycles of all these years of
Yeah.
using food? How long do you think it took you?
I call what I am food sober. I
Ah,
mean, I think when we think about addictions, we think
mhm.
about sobriety. And one reason why I never got well with all the hospitals is it wasn't treated like addiction, but that's
Yeah,
truly what it
I
is.
believe it.
People treat food differently. Everybody says you can't cut out whole food groups like
Right,
sugar. You have
right.
to learn to be a moderator. And so
Oh,
when I look at addiction, and I realize I cannot be a moderator,
yeah.
and only by being food sober do I stay clean. Um, there are layers of food sobriety. That first layer was just getting off the sugar. I think at
Mm-hmm.
first I did still overeat. I think I
Mm-hmm.
overate,
Mm-hmm.
nuts, all
Oh, yeah.
the keto
Even though
things.
keto, right? I
Yes, it
know
was
that.
keto,
Yeah.
but it was still because of the high fat content. I don't think I had felt full in forever. I always said that hunger full switch was burnt out in me because I had ignored it so many
Right.
times.
I
And for the
totally.
first time, like I just felt real fullness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the other hand, I also felt real hunger.
Yeah.
And so in about 2 months,
Wow.
when I was eating this way, I realized I had not purged.
Wow.
I
Wow.
had
That's
not
great. You
binged.
were satisfied, finally satisfied with what you were eating,
Yeah,
and you didn't feel like you had to purge. That's amazing.
yeah.
Yep.
And for someone who struggles with bulimia, even overeating keto food, your brain can give that signal to purge.
Yeah.
But that true satisfaction. I mean, I could have eaten. I always say I was like a bottomless pit with bulimia because I think my
Mhm.
body knew I was going to purge, so it allowed me to eat huge
Right.
amounts of food.
Right.
But the urge to overeat very high fat literally just dissipated. I
That's
started
amazing.
off eating a lot of it, and then the
Right.
next thing I knew, like I would skip meals,
Right.
and
That's amazing. Yeah.
I really wasn't hungry. It was just so amazing. And that's when I realized it was different, not just because I didn't purge, but because I could think clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had had a lot of therapy for eating disorders, and I never could apply it to me. I
Yeah.
was too much in my addiction.
Right.
It literally took me getting through that,
Yeah.
satisfied, in order to be able to work through it. And I don't think I could have worked through it without the high fat either.
Right.
I think
I
my
love
brain is better.
Yeah, and I loved what you said. There is layers of food sobriety, and for me too. When I went sugar free in 2004, I really thought it was only about the sugar. I
Right.
really did. And then as the years went by, and I was free from sugar, like completely free. I could see someone eating a candy bar. I didn't
Right.
even crave it, cupcakes, nothing. I believe God really saved me from that
Yeah.
addiction. But then as the years went by and I did low carb, I realized, man, I think it's a food addiction. I think it's like
Yeah.
I just like to overeat. If a little is good, I want more. I have a problem
Yeah.
with more, until I went keto. That's when I
Yeah.
got satisfied with the fat, eating the healthy avocado and the olive oil and not worrying about the butter and all this.
Right.
That's when I finally broke free from overeating, you know. So what can you what kinds of tangible things could we share with everyone on how, what would be the first few steps on how you can overcome emotional eating, you know, because like you, I come from a family, you eat when you're happy, you eat when you're sad, there's a party,
Right.
there's a death, there's this, that, and you eat, you make food for people. I'm Italian, that's the way we grew up. So,
Yeah.
but you know, we don't want to eat for our emotions anymore. So what kind of, you know, tangible things or maybe some first steps could someone take in really helping them, you know, get ahead, get through this?
What I do with every single one of my clients, and we teach some eating disorder classes too, but the first
Mm-hmm.
step is just getting clean. It's it's detoxing from the sugar. We
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about macros. We don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about counting. The freedom from that obsession, that need to make things add up and be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in the past, if they have struggled with overeating, eating disorders, they would log their food, and if they went over on one macro anyway, they'd say, "Well, I blew it." It would be a reason to
Yeah,
overeat.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, instead of it being an incentive, it becomes this control thing. So the
yeah.
first thing I say is keep it simple. Don't
Mm-hmm.
overcomplicate it with macros and all of that. Get a good food list of things that are good for a ketogenic diet, and
Mm-hmm.
eat those instead of the sugar and
Mm-hmm.
carbs. And at first, you are going to crave those things. But
Mm-hmm.
if you know that you don't really have a limit, if you know that you can eat um, other things, that first week when people are really craving, a lot of times they'll say, "Well, I really, really want something sweet," and I'll say, "Well, don't have something sweet. Go get a piece of cheese and put a little bit of butter on it," or
Right,
something like that,
right.
just to
Try
because
to get
because
savory in there.
it
Yeah.
really does when you have, or some cream cheese, something
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very fatty, but it's a real food
Mm-hmm.
that actually satisfies that physical craving and helps you
Mm-hmm.
get through that. So,
Mm-hmm.
number one thing is keep it simple. Switch out the foods you've been
Mm-hmm.
eating
Mm-hmm.
for keto foods, even if you are overeating them at first.
Right,
And
right,
then, second, look at fat as, since we understand that fat is the part that's so good for our brain and it's the part that satisfies, look at your protein and your carbs as vehicles to get that in your body. Um,
mm,
People get very squirrely about the fat. I'm like you, I grew up in that same time where I'm like, you did not eat over 20 grams of fat a day.
yeah,
And so that was a huge leap of faith for me. And I think that people that are our age, they really do struggle with the fat thing. But one of the things I had to realize is when I was eating a standard American diet, I was actually eating much more fat than I eat on keto, and it wasn't good fat.
right,
So
right,
if I had to work through that a little bit, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not eating higher fat now than I was when I was eating,
yeah,
pizza and burgers with buns and all those things, only it just wasn't healthy fat.
right,
So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, it is just a leap of faith. If what you have done, if you've done low fat, if you've done all
right,
those things, if it
right.
hasn't worked, you
You've
have
got to try
nothing
something
to
else.
lose by
Yes,
trying this.
right.
Um, but, people say, well, without tracking, how do you know? How do you get high fat? How do you have moderate protein? How do you have low carb? I'm like, if you have, if you're having carbs and your carbs are broccoli, instead of having a whole bag of broccoli, have the broccoli, but have some butter and some bacon and some sour
Yeah,
cream, and, make it
yeah,
like a loaded potato, only broccoli. So
right.
it's, if you make your carbs and you make your proteins vehicles to get fat in, you never get to the end of the day. I hear people say, well, I need a way to get my fat in. And that
I,
always drives me
me
crazy
too. Yeah, it really
because
is.
I'm like, no, 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 that doesn't serve any purpose.
Right.
You
We want
need
to lose
to,
the fat on our body, right? Not the fat that we're consuming. You know, we
well,
want to lose the
we
fat.
definitely, yeah, we definitely need both because it's a fuel source, but
Right.
there's it doesn't benefit you in any way to like shove that in at the end of the day.
Right.
It's
Especially
just
if you're
adding it
satisfied. Yeah.
adding it to your foods as you eat to keep you satisfied so that you
Right.
don't overeat the other macronutrients. You don't overeat carbs. Instead of binging on broccoli,
Right.
you have a small amount of broccoli
Right.
with some fats.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts on? So when I first went sugar free in 2004, there were not a lot of options for sweeteners, and
Right.
so I went to Splenda. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess if I have to go sugar free, I'm going to have to do artificial sweeteners because there
Sure.
really wasn't anything back
Right.
then.
I
And
remember.
so
Yeah.
that's what happened. And I started doing that. And by 2007, 2008, after a few years, I'm like, I am just as addicted to this stuff
Yeah.
as regular sugar. So that's when I started creating recipes using stevia because that was the only
Right.
thing I knew. I think erythritol probably was on the market, but because it sounded like a chemical to me, I was afraid to use it. But
Well, if
now
you
I
ever
know.
had maltitol, anything that ends in tol
Right,
scares you off because
right, right.
that's a
But
chemical sweetener
erythritol,
that causes tummy troubles.
right, right. And I learned that the first year that I was sugar free, my husband, my sweet husband, brought home sugar free candy for Christmas for me.
Oh my
Oh, I
gosh.
don't
Yeah.
know. Oh my goodness. I
Frightening.
ate, because I like to eat like one little bite, one little bite. Well, I ate so many bites that I was so sick. My stomach was so I
Yeah.
learned my lesson. And that's when I started creating recipes with stevia. And eventually I came to learn about erythritol being natural as well. And then I could use that.
Right.
But I know that there are people watching that are probably, still using artificial sweeteners. I feel like that if there's something that if you need to start out somewhere, it might be beneficial for a short time, but I don't know.
Sure.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on artificial sweeteners? And well, stevia to me and erythritol are natural.
Yeah, I
So
actually don't think of them in that
no,
artificial sweetener
right. I don't either.
category.
Right.
Um, if you're considering going sugar free, and I hope people are, everything in the world is pointing towards sugar as the cause of inflammation and
Hmm.
disease.
Hmm.
If you're not keto yet, if you're not low carb yet, going sugar free is a great first step. One of the things that's kind of tricky is though things like Splenda nowadays, it
Yeah.
typically has types of sugar in it, like maltodextrin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's part of the issue is that even things that are sugar free are
Yeah.
bulked with sugars. So I really do try to only use stevia and
Mhm.
erythritol and
Yeah.
then occasionally xylitol. Um,
Mm. I've
things
been
that are
using monk fruit too now, and
yeah,
that's I've been enjoying that. So that's another
yeah,
option. But back when I started, there wasn't any of these
no,
options at
yeah,
all. But I mean, that's why I started creating recipes too, is because the whole fact that when you're starting out, you don't want to feel deprived. You
that's
want to
right.
be able to enjoy desserts like everybody else. So thank God
That's right.
you can make something at home that will taste just as good
And
so you can stick with it,
and
right?
again, going back to those layers of sobriety, there was a time period for me that I had to figure out where I could what to do with that.
Hmm.
So I remember the first holidays making, those
Yeah,
things with erythritol,
right.
and oh my goodness, I've always liked to bake. I've
Yeah,
always made, cakes and things like that. And they were good. To me, I could definitely overeat those. I could still binge
yeah,
eat them because they taste so sweet. So I had to really play with my limits on that. I had to
hmm,
go in with a plan.
hmm.
One of the things I realized is if I make a keto sweet like that, a whole cheesecake, I need to take it to a party and leave
Yeah,
it there.
I
I
know.
give myself permission to have a
Yeah,
piece, but then I'm going to leave it there. If it's at my house,
yeah.
unfortunately, I still tend towards, well, I'm going to eat one piece every day till it's
Right,
gone.
right. And I'm betting that a lot of people who are watching are watching for a reason because they can relate,
Right.
that for me too, having something beautiful and keto friendly in the fridge and or in the freezer, and I will want a piece every day. So we're not gonna, if you're watching, guys, and you are, hoping to have weight loss, but if you're you can still gain weight on keto. I've
You
been there.
really can. Yeah, you really can. There are people that are like, "Why am I gaining weight?" And they're still
Yeah.
they're still indulging in that compulsive eating behavior, especially compulsively eating some of the wrong things.
Yeah.
And sometimes sweet things can turn that on. I found that at first,
Yeah.
um, that first set of holidays, it actually turned on hunger in general. I was celebrating being free from from hunger on keto, and then eating too much of that stuff can actually turn on your hunger, not just for more sweet things.
Right.
But as you know, I have a keto kid.
Right.
Everybody in my family's keto. My daughter in her 20s, who gets married next week, is
Oh,
keto, as well as
congratulations.
her fiance. But my 12-year-old is keto, and she has epilepsy. So that was an incentive for me to create those things.
Yes.
I just had to figure out with my own boundaries with
Right.
them.
Right.
If I would decide before I went into a situation, yes, I can have a piece of this. It's healthy, it's natural. I realize it may turn on some false hunger, but I also realize I need to leave it here. I need to give it away, or I need to send it home with people if
Right.
it's a party
Right.
for
Right.
me. Now I'm at a place, I think now, going on 4 years, that it could be in my house. I'm not going to overeat it, but
Yeah.
that first couple of years, I definitely
Right.
had to figure out where I stood with it.
Right.
You get to a place where you're like, you know, I don't want to overeat anything, or I don't want to put anything into my body that is going to make me unhealthy, or
Right.
that's going to turn on cravings. You start to pursue health
Right.
more than you are running from compulsive eating,
Right.
more than you are running from the eating disorder. You want to only
Right.
put things in your body that are good. And I consider natural sweeteners, that are low in glycemic index like that, I consider those good. I don't think
Yeah.
they're bad for my body, but it would be bad for my body if I ate the whole cheesecake. So
Right, right, right. So you're saying, so as far as, let's get back to like that emotional eating. So the first step is really trying to get rid of all the names of sugar, like the maltodextrin and dextrose and high fructose corn syrup. So not just the white refined sugar, right? So trying to get that out of your life is probably the first step. And then if people have already done that, um, and they're still, and say they're already keto and they're still eating
yes.
their emotions, overeating, what do you suggest that someone could do? Join a support group, or what do you think is say they're keto and they're still overeating?
Well, we in the eating disorder classes that we have, there's a range of people, and a lot of people who come in are people who have been keto for a while. They are through that first layer of sobriety. They don't indulge in sugar and grains and
Right.
carbs, um, but they overeat still, and that's where we teach you to separate real hunger from head hunger,
Yeah.
or
Habit. Yeah.
head hunger. And we do that by, everybody has eating patterns. You mentioned, after the kids going to bed, like sitting
Right.
down in front of the TV, and that's your time to relax. Everybody has eating patterns like that in their life. And the first thing we do is we teach people to really find out, document when are the situations in your life that you're most likely to use food when you're not actually hungry. And
Okay.
everybody has those habitual times.
Right.
Um, One of the things that we call them triggers.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
one of the things that people don't realize is it isn't just, okay, being alone at night. It isn't just the kids going to bed and you feel triggered. Sometimes it's emotional situations. You get a phone call from a certain person who you
Yeah.
have conflict with, and
Right.
so as you discover your own personal triggers, being too hungry, too angry, too lonely, too
Yeah.
tired, those
Stress.
are
Yeah.
all really, really common triggers.
Mm-hmm.
What we teach you is, once you know your triggers, you can actually say, I realize that when I am alone at night,
Mm-hmm.
I am going to get that impulse to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to be on guard during those trigger times.
And then you find some other way or something else to do at that time.
Yeah, in the beginning, you can do avoidance. I like to do,
Mm.
back in the day, I would do white strips because I was like, these things are
Ah,
expensive and I cannot eat while they're in my mouth.
that's smart. Yeah. Yeah.
Or do something that makes it hard for you to do it at first. But it's really working through, what is it that I believe that this food will do for me.
That's
If
true.
we're eating emotionally, it's because we believe that that food is going to provide us something.
Yeah.
And what I have found is, I call the eating disorder Ed, because it's nice to separate the voice of sabotage from my own voice. I
Mm.
want to be well. I want to be healthy. I want to eat things that help me meet my weight goals and my health goals.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
why am I sabotaging? The
Yeah,
voice of sabotage, again, I call Ed for
I
eating.
love that.
You're vulnerable to Ed during those trigger times, but Ed always promises something.
Right.
Ed says, you know what? You deserve this.
Yeah.
You're so worn out. You've worked hard all day long. The kids have worn you out. You deserve
Mhm. Yeah.
this. And deserve is one of those words that you really have to question. Do I deserve to be overweight? Do I deserve to be
Right.
addicted? Or do I deserve to be healthy? So
Mhm.
you really have to question that. Ed always, or he'll say, you know what, it'll just be for tonight, and then tomorrow you'll start over. And then we
Mhm.
all know, that's almost always a lie. It
It's
carries on to the next day. Or Ed will say, the voice of sabotage will say, it's only going to be one bite. You have one bite, you'll be satisfied.
right. Right.
And and
It
so
never is. It never is by one bite. No,
it
no.
never is. It never is. So we fall for those same lies over and
Yeah.
over from Ed. We're vulnerable. He offers the food solution, and we say, yeah, I
Yeah.
believe you. It's only going to be one bite, and then it never is. And
Yeah.
then once you realize your triggers, you understand the lies that you are getting caught up in and believing, you can confront them with the truth. And
Yeah.
I think that is the most powerful part of
Mhm.
recovery.
Mhm.
So if Ed says to me, you know what, it's just going to be tonight, and then tomorrow you're going to start
It's
over,
going
and
to make you feel better.
eat
Yeah.
it all so you won't have it to binge on tomorrow. I mean, it's so crazy.
I know.
He says the same thing to all of us.
Yeah.
But the same lies. I literally, because I have slowed things down and I know I'm expecting to hear from Ed because I'm in my trigger time, I can stand up and say, no, Ed, you've said that to me 1,000 times,
Mhm.
and 1,000 times it has not been one bite. Or a
Mhm.
thousand times this has turned
Sure.
into the whole weekend instead of
Yeah.
one meal
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
The voice of sabotage flees in the face of truth.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when you speak back the truth to lies that you have been believing, you start to realize that you don't have to, just because that sabotaging thought is
Mhm.
planted, does
Mhm.
not mean you have to follow through. And
Yeah.
that's a very powerful thing to realize. All I have to do is speak the truth. If I
Yeah.
realize the lie that I believe that's causing me to soothe with food,
Right.
and I can stop, I can slow down, I can hear it,
Yeah.
and I can do that because I know I'm in a trigger period, then I can speak back with the voice of truth,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
that it really
And
flees.
it takes strength and it's going to take time, right?
It
It's
does.
going to
It
take
takes a lot of
time,
practice.
practice to develop that voice to even speak it out loud and say, no,
Yeah,
I'm not going to keep doing this. Because sometimes you want to wallow in that sadness or the stress or anger, whatever it is that's
right.
causing you to eat, right?
Well, we don't want to feel it. I think that's one of the things
No.
too.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
fear we fear feeling something fully. We know if we rip off that Band-Aid and we don't use food to
Right.
soothe, we may feel very angry,
Yeah.
or we may feel very sad.
Yeah.
It really keeps us, it numbs our feelings, and then the fear becomes, well, if you take that away, am I going to be this horrible
Yeah.
screaming crazy person? I mean, I think that's one of the lies we believe, is that we need Ed. We need the
To
food to
calm
soothe
us
us.
down, right? To comfort, whatever. Yeah.
And the reality is, you know, that's a sabotaging thought too.
Right. Right.
Um, Staying addicted to food keeps us from thinking clearly. It keeps us from doing the thing we were created to do. And
Hmm.
ultimately, that's what the whole sabotage is about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we believe the lie that we need that disordered eating to fill a hole, or we need the disordered
Hmm.
eating to be able to handle emotions. And
Hmm.
it's not true. It
Yeah.
isn't. The
Yeah.
reality is, you eat the food to soothe the emotion, and then not only do you still feel the anger or the sadness or
Yeah.
whatever it is you're going through, you also then have guilt and
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
because you have
Yeah.
let yourself down.
Yeah.
A lot of times the behaviors are sneaky too. A
Yeah.
lot of times the behaviors are, you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
That adds this element of shame also. And
Yeah.
I think the more you're shamed, the more you need comfort. And it's this crazy
Mm,
cycle of giving into it.
yeah. Those are some great tips. I think the biggest thing is that, just to recap, we want to get rid of the sugar and just stop eating all forms of sugar.
Trade it. Yes.
And then
Trade.
we want to follow a ketogenic lifestyle. So you increase the good, healthy fats that's going to
Right.
satisfy you. And then you want to recognize your triggers, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Know when you're vulnerable
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
giving into food.
Yeah.
When you're vulnerable to sabotage.
Yeah.
Once you recognize your triggers, you are on guard.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
say, you know what, I'm not going to fall victim to the same thing over
Yeah.
and over again. I don't have to repeat this cycle if it doesn't work for me in my life.
Right. Right.
Really
Right.
empowering.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'd love to. I don't want to keep you much longer. I do want to get to a couple of questions that we've gotten, and I
Great.
saw Sydney said, "I'm 53, a new grandma, and I'm struggling. I've tried keto, and high fat caused me to gain even more. And I've been there. I did keto for a whole year. I didn't really gain, but I didn't lose anything because I was just eating too much fat. I think,
Right. Yeah. So what I would say about that is anytime you're trying to do ratios that are for someone else,
Mhm.
we are also individual that we have to figure out our right ratio. Some people do better with a 1-1 ratio, meaning equal fat and protein. Some people do better with I personally did 85% fat, um,
Wow.
and lost 135 pounds.
See, wow, that's amazing. And I couldn't lose weight at 75% fat
Right.
in my
But
diet.
but then I have clients it does not work. The
Yeah,
thing about keto and the thing about the amount of fat is you have to figure out how much you need to satisfy you. You
right.
can still overeat, especially if you have issues with compulsive overeating. And
Right.
fat is your highest macronutrient, but it is also very, very caloric. And so if you are overeating fat
Mhm,
compulsively, you're absolutely
mhm,
going to gain weight.
mhm,
Um, and so it's not a free for all. I think sometimes people think that, and it
mhm.
just truly isn't. But it requires experimentation on your part. Nobody else's macros are necessarily going to work for you.
Right.
And
I
if
think the most important thing is just to keep the carbs to 20 and
yes,
then fluctuate or leverage the fat and the protein because everyone is going to be different. And I
yes,
found because I work out with a trainer twice a week, like I was still eating fat when I was hungry, but what actually I should have done and what I started doing is increasing my protein at my meals.
sure,
And by doing
absolutely. It's
that,
more, yeah.
yes, it
It's
totally
those
helped.
individual factors that it's how much are you working out?
Yeah,
It's all those things. So I highly recommend experimentation, and I highly recommend having someone work with you on your individual
yeah,
macros that you need, as
right.
well as having someone look at your food. If you're tracking, or even if you're not tracking, I have
Right.
clients who send me pictures of food, and I give them idea of how they can switch, because I do think the numbers obsession can be a pretty huge
I
issue.
agree with that. Yes. We don't have to hit those certain numbers, at the end of
Yes.
the day. A couple of people mentioned, Tanya said, I've used certain foods to relieve stress.
Yeah.
But she started writing a sentence about stress in the moment so she can pinpoint the stress and, in a way, kind of remove internalization of the stress, which that's a great tip. Somebody else, Jules said, I eat when I'm bored. So you've got, I think, for me, that 9 o'clock ritual of feeling hungry, I had to avoid, and I just went to bed because
Right, going to
I,
bed, doing
yeah,
something physical to get you away from the situation is
yeah,
really good in the beginning, especially until you break that
right,
habit, that cycle.
right. And I think as far as stress, everyone's going to have stress. We're going to have stress every day. I mean, there are some people can handle it better than others, but no one's going to live a stress-free life. But you've got to find some ways to release some of that stress. And for me, it's working out. I call a friend, call my mom, take a walk. What about you? What do you do for stress?
I think that's wise though, that what she said about writing it down. Um,
Yes,
I struggled with severe anxiety issues. I mean, I've taken all the anti-anxiety meds and I
right.
don't take them now. And I do think keto helps with that, but
Yes,
I do feel anxious sometimes. That
right.
comes from stress. And stress really it's fear. It's based on something you're worried about or you're afraid of. So when
Yeah,
I feel stressed, I actually sit down and I write and I say, what am I afraid of?
yeah,
And it's interesting. So if you sit down and write a sentence about stress, what
yeah,
I write down is, what am I so worried about?
right.
And sometimes it's not the surface stuff. It's not that you're worried that you're not going to, do a good job, or I'm worried people won't like me.
Yeah,
Or sometimes I'm worried that, something bad's going to happen. Like writing it down gets it out of your head, and
yes,
then it's on paper. It
right.
doesn't have that power over you to keep you worked up. So
Yeah.
I do love that technique also.
Yeah.
That you said,
Yeah,
right?
that was great. Tanya mentioned that. And then, so Tanya also said she started cutting out eating after 5 p.m., which is a smart thing. I just think everyone and drinking chamomile tea at night. That's
Yeah,
great.
something else that relaxes you like that
Yeah.
isn't to turn on hunger, but
Yeah.
a lot of people eat because it signals the end of their work day. And
Right.
so they have this ritual of, oh, okay, now
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat. And so you just replace it with another ritual that's
Yeah.
healthier, like the tea. That is perfect. It's a great
Yeah.
example. Of course,
Yeah.
then, painting your nails, putting in white strips, doing
Yeah.
something physically hard, going outside and like digging in the garden, doing something that
Right.
makes it physically hard to eat during that moment of
Right.
temptation actually is very helpful in the beginning.
Right. I just think that was really a great tip about writing it down. And I really think recognizing is half the battle when you're triggered to
Yeah.
eat. So I think that's been a wonderful tip. And I hope so many of you who are watching have gotten some piece that you can take away with to help you, go further with your own journey. I mean, we're not saying that keto is going to solve all your problems, but it's a start in the right direction so that you can be satisfied with your food and you will not crave the crap of the standard American diet stuff. And that, there are some things you're still going to have to do, even doing keto. You may need counseling, you may need group support, you may need one on one support, right? But hopefully, some of these tips will get you started in the right direction. And Jessyca, please share with everyone how people can follow you, find more about you, or seek, your coaching if needed.
Um, on Facebook and Instagram, I'm Coach Jessyca. It's Jessyca with a Y, JessysYca. I do work for Keto Evangelist Coaching. Right now, focused on the eating disorder groups. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it, we sort of teach you. I do it with another coach, and we take you through the steps of
Mm-hmm.
getting food sober, beginning wherever you are. But
Excellent.
you can find that at ketoevangelistcoaching.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
Thank you
And
for having me.
I would love to have you again at some point. And we'll maybe I'll look at more questions and we'll use that on another time. But thank
Awesome.
you again. It's been a
All
pleasure
right.
to have you.
All right.
Take
Thanks a
care.
bunch.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone. Good night. See you next time.